Hi, hello, welcome back. My name is Devraj, and I wanted today just to talk a little bit more about an easy way and a useful way that you can break down the Reichian character types. You know, those 5 character types that first isolated by Reich back in the 1920s, and that although it's never really hit super mainstream, big time acceptance like the Myers-Briggs or the Enneagram or astrological symbols, nevertheless are very, very useful to understand. And I find they provide much deeper and more useful psychological insights than anything else. And of course, you may have done the Reichian characterology personality quiz on my website and be a little bit bemused perhaps as to how to interpret it. And some very easy categorization that you can do initially is to look at the ego deficient types and the ego accessing types. Because of these character types, they can be easily split like that. Those which occur before the age of about 3 or 4 are ego deficient types, and if you're significant in them, then that will probably weaken your ability to go out in the world and create a good life for yourself. And those which happen after that might make your personality a bit of a drag socially in various less or more extreme ways, but you probably are capable of moving out into the world and getting needs met. And evidence of this is seen by the fact that, if like me, you run a lot of therapy groups and you get used to seeing people come through the door into the group room, what I noticed is that probably 90 to 95% of people are in one of the first 3 categories, one of the pre-egoic categories. So they are ego deficient, and this is what's causing them to seek therapy. So the ego deficient types are the first 3, and those are the dreamer, otherwise known as the schizoid, or I tend to call them the dissociating personality, which often happens even from conception while you're in the womb to maybe the first year of life. There's a fundamental there's a fundamental feeling somewhere of unsafety, and the awareness starts to come defensively out of the body. And such a person, their inner world is governed by fear. They may have a lot of great ideas of things they could do, but they're very scared to go out in the world and really do them. Something always seems to get in the way, which is subtly their manifestation. The second ego deficient type is the oral, and this is invariably created by a lack of proper connection with the mother in the first year of life. We've just been inside our mama for 9 months, and when we come out, we expect a gradual movement out away from the mama. But if the mama's very busy or there's something else going on, and just the kind of culture we live in, that's often the case. We don't get that felt connection with the mother in the first year, and then our inner world tends to be dominated by a sense of lack. And so, we've got this void inside that we're either avoiding all the time and got some kind of avoidant behavior, maybe narcissism or getting involved in caring for people all the time, or we're just in this kind of needy state and then not knowing really what to do about that and how to fill it. The third type is the enduring type. This is also a pre-egoic phase because it happens just as our own ego starts to form. And our own ego starts to form psychologically around the age of 2, when we first get access to this word no, or whatever the equivalent is in your own language. Because with this word no, you can start to define your own inner space. Previous to getting the word no, when we're like 1, our mum wants to go down the shops, she pushes us to the shops, we just go to the shops. Our dad takes us in the back of the car, we're off in the back of the car. We don't have a way of protesting and creating a sense of our own desire, our own direction. But when this word no comes, then suddenly it can be like, no, I don't want to go to the shops, mum, I don't want to go to the garage, dad, whatever it is. And with this no, and of course kids scream and like crazy, then sometimes the parents come in so hard, they squash that no, and we never really develop a sense that we're okay and that we have the right to be us. We squash all the feelings down. This is the endurer personality. If in your Reichian characterology, basically, you scored very highly in one of these 3 categories, you're probably quite ego deficient, and that is not a good thing. These days, often in society, the word ego has become associated negatively, and the idea of having a big ego is like a bad thing, and, it's kind of seen to be better to have a small ego. But in reality, ego really is just your drive, or in this sense of the word, it's just your ability to take your own desire out into the world and to move forwards with yourself. And if you don't have egoic drive, probably your life won't be that great. You know, if you're constantly in ideas but you can't manifest, if you're always in this inner needy space or trying to cover up or compensate that, if you're always kind of feeling like you have to push stuff down and you can't allow your natural emotions to come, it's not easy to have a particularly good life. So these are the ego deficient characters, and this is useful to understand because they're what you need to work on first. When I first came across Reichian characterology and got assessed, you know, I was classified, I think, oral rigid or maybe rigid oral, I can't remember, but those were my first two. And of course the rigids, along with the aggressives, are post-egoic. You know, they can do stuff out in the world, but the thing to work on is the pre-egoic first. And you may well have done my quiz and found that you're high in other traits, in the rigid trait or in the aggressive trait. But it's important to work on the traits that you have that are ego negative, that are ego restrictive first. Okay, so that's just a little chat about characterology. I'm still finding it an absolutely awesome way of monitoring and measuring personality. It's so useful and so insightful. I'm actually going to be writing a book on it later this year, and that'll include, as well as a description, a deep description of all of these character types and some of the common combinations of character types. Also exercises that we can do from the work of Reich and also bioenergetics, where we can start to do to move these patterns out and have a better life for ourselves. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll speak to you again soon.